Okay, so the next bit we want to look at then is now that we've got a kick and snare, which I'll play for you now. Let's just do that now. Is we want to put some loops in there. Now I'm a fan of using loops, but I'm not a fan of using loops as they come, because I think we can make more interesting loops using Ableton Live's functions for audio. Just going to show you a wee bit of that now, and then show you how I added an additional snare thanks to a loop that I managed to find that ran perfectly with the snare drum that I've now got. So basically all I do is I go into my loops folder at the side and just look for some drum loops. So I'll just go into the Fidget House one just for to show you, and go into the drum loops part of it. Then all I do is press play on this so I can hear the drum that I've got at the minute, as in the kick and snare. And then I just audition different loops. And see what's fit. Okay, so we'll go with that one just to show exactly how it works. Just take it and drag it out on an available track. We can see the loop just there. We can see it down at the bottom here. So it gives us a clearer idea. Now what we want to make sure is that nothing's clashing. So when we play this, we want to make sure the snare runs properly. Now we mightn't want to keep the snare in there. So basically this is what we do as far as that's concerned. All I'll do is just take out the snare because I know it's going to hit on this beat, and it's just a case of dragging over it and just hitting delete, and I'll just remove it completely from the track itself. So we'll do that for all of the snare hits. Now as you can imagine, when we press play again, we're going to have some gaps. It's not so bad, it's not as pronounced, but we mightn't want those gaps in, so we'll take another area of the hi-hat and we'll click Control and D, and that'll just duplicate that out over the track. So we'll just do it with this part here, and what we're going to end up with basically is a brand new loop based on these sounds. Same as using Recycle. I mean, you can do it with Recycle and use Rex files. It works exactly the same way, you just do it in MIDI, but ultimately in the long run we want to make sure that these particular parts are okay. We'll just duplicate those out and make sure that they are. Sometimes you mightn't want some of the stuff that's there, but if I just now press play, we've got a brand new loop. And as you can hear, we no longer have the actual snare drum, so it's not getting in the way of our own snare drum. And just to complete that, what we'll do now is just consolidate it all. So we just select it and right click and go to consolidate. And now we've got a completely brand new loop that we can use within our track. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone back to the main arrangement now. I actually used a dub loop for this and used exactly the same way of doing things to make sure that nothing was clashing. So we'll just play you those sounds now. As you can hear, we get a really nice piece of ambience in the background just with the snare drum clicking on. It gives us a nice groove. Now one thing that I did as well on top of that was found another beat where the snare actually really pronounced the snare that I already had. So I did exactly the same thing and just cut out the snare area, but this snare actually runs out past. If I just play you this in isolation, first of all. You can hear really it's just like a it's just like a hi-hat really more than anything else. But whenever I put that in with the main snare, it gives it a really good sound. And as you can hear now, we get a really, really good groove going. I'm really pleased with that so far. Just make those smaller. And then what we did was we looked at another one and pulled out a breath sound from it. And it literally just hits on the second and fourth. And that's how we did it. Now we want to look at the actual hi-hat itself. Now what I'll do with those hi-hats is basically put them in so that they play against the loop, because we want to make sure that the loops groove along with the hi-hat itself. So I'm just going to take everything out and let you hear the hi-hat as it stands at the moment. So as we can hear, it fits perfectly with the snare drum and everything that we've put in, the extra one, and the dub loop itself. But what we want to do is not be afraid to use more than one hi-hat, because obviously this is on the offbeat, but it doesn't mean to say we can't get a really good groove off different sounding hi-hats. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a few in now, and I'll show you exactly how I go about finding the right hi-hats. Now you'll see at the bottom here I've got an actual drum rack that's just filled with them. It's filled with different hi-hats, and basically all I do from there is just double click on the MIDI file and just put some in and go right along. You know, we'll be able to find some that will fit, we'll find some that probably won't fit, but what we'll do is, see if you click on the key at the side, it selects all of them, and then we're going to use the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard to find a hi-hat that actually works, and we do that just by playing it against the loop. And we found one that works perfectly with that. So then what I tend to do from there is to add more in, just at different levels, and we put more in as we go along and try and create a better groove that goes along with that actual thing itself. So if we hit play now, now we've got some really good hi-hats. If I put in the kick and the snare, got a really, really nice groove going now, and that's pretty much it. That's what I'll tend to do when it comes to hi-hats, and make sure that they're exactly the way that I want them to be. Yeah, so there you go.